accident, you know it's no walk in the park. Car repairs, medical bills, and lost time from work all add up. And if the insurance company isn't paying their fair share, you have to cover the rest, even if it wasn't your fault. That's why you need an advocate. Call us today, and we'll do everything we can to get you moving again. Come on.
You deserve clear, risk-free advice to help get you back on your feet. You deserve an advocate.
This is The Monty Show, the truth in sports talk streaming. When you want unbiased opinions about your favorite team without the spin, all you have to do is find The Monty Show, streaming live and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on YouTube. And now, here's Monty.
Hey, The Monty Show, live on your YouTube machine. Good Wednesday, the last day of July, which can go fuck off. So glad July's coming to an end. One more week of 100-degree temperatures, we hope. It's already August. That means football is a month away, which we have a lot to get to today. The Monty Show, as always, is presented by The Advocates at theadvocates.com. Today, is one of the final days of their partnership to raise money with The Road Home, America's foremost homeless advocacy group. And we've talked about it all month long. We've talked about it now for 6 weeks. We have raised an incredible amount of money on this show, which is humbling. You guys are amazing. The Road Home and the Advocates are partnering on what they call the Apple Tree, which is where they raise money for homeless and underprivileged kids to have the basic essentials they need to compete in school on a daily basis. We're talking about things like pens, pencils, paper, food for lunch, underwear and socks, things like a backpack. And I've told this story all month long about how, last year they raised money for kids and they gave kids a backpack with school supplies in it. And the emotion that those kids showed, crying because they were getting a backpack, which they had not had. That's the level we're talking about. So I would ask you today to redouble your efforts if you've already donated. If you have not, please consider getting on Venmo, Advocates Donations, and consider making a donation to the Advocates. 100% of that money goes to the Road Home to help underprivileged and homeless kids compete at school. Good morning. Let's do some shout outs as we have been. The real Pete Forte. Hello. Big Blue Horses. The 12 might have the most parity, but the SEC is clearly the best league in college football. And then for some reason you said, go Gators. That's kind of like a fart that leaves a musty taste in your mouth. To end with go Gators. I don't really understand that. That's weird. IBC says, morning, Marty. Morning, IBC. Dudes. What's up, Gary? Good to see you. IBC says, I think the SEC has 3 teams that may be top: Bama, Georgia, Texas. The Big may have 3-4 that will be top teams. The rest of the teams in those conferences are bottom feeders. And this ultimately is the discussion, right? Like you get into now what is legitimately the preseason and into all of this conjecture, and you start asking yourself, how good is each conference? And last night, while laying in bed thinking about all of you, which means I was trying to figure out what the heck we were going to talk about today, I was reading the New York Times and their top 25 college football poll, especially the top 10, does not have a single Big 12 football team in it. Not one. And you look at what it is made up of: Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, third. Oregon ranked number 3 in the country. Texas, Bama, LSU, Ole Miss, Penn State, Pedo State, Notre Dame, number 9, Texas A&M, lofty at number 10. not a single current, now previous, but current member of the Big 12 is in that top 10. The highest ranking member is the Utah Utes at 14. And so I ask you, should we expect the Big 12 to have a good season? And is the Big 12 the best or one of the best leagues in the country? Now, I know every day on this show we're told we're Big 10 homers, we're SEC homers. We're told every day that we hate Florida State and we don't watch college football. All of that might be true. But I look at the Big 12, and my biggest concern is not quality football on the field. My biggest concern for the Big 12 is they're going to eat each other at the top of this conference. And you are not going to see that in the SEC, and you're certainly not going to see that until late in the season in the Big 10. And I feel like the Big 12 has an opportunity here to put two teams in the college football playoff. I get it. I understand that that means that there are going to be significant disappointments in the SEC and the Big 10. The ACC obviously is the one I have not named, but I think the ACC is clearly bringing up the caboose of best college football conferences in the country. And I think all of us agree, well, the ACC is a stalwart of college basketball. Certainly the conference is struggling in college football. And my biggest question, I guess, at this point is, who are the teams, Jake, that you believe will disappoint this season in college football?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the Big 12, like you have a lot of question marks. I think, so many polls, through the summer have had, teams like K-State having huge seasons and just bouncing back. I think K-State is a team that has potential bust written all over them for this season. But I think just the same way that we have some teams like that, we also have some teams that I think a lot of people are throwing shade at. And that a lot of people say that we're too supportive of the Utah Utes and, we're too high on the Utes. But I've seen them in preseason polling ranked as high as number 3 and as low as like 19. So I don't think that the issue is that Big 12 teams can't compete, or maybe, the Big 12 is going to churn itself out. I think the issue is that there's just too many unknowns in the conference. There's too many unproven teams that change year over year. So last year when Will Howard was at K-State, you said, yeah, K-State's a good team. They may compete, to be in the championship game potentially. But this year, everyone says, even though they've got this change of quarterback, everyone's saying that they're going to have a great year. And I feel like it works the same way for teams like the Utes. And I look at the SEC and I say, okay, if we're going to do that to the Big 12, let's apply the same logic to the SEC. Why is it that so many people are high on teams like Ole Miss and the SEC? Lane Train has not proven at any time that he can beat the likes of Georgia, Alabama, and frankly, LSU in their good years, right? Because LSU sometimes has good years, sometimes has bad years. So in the good years, I don't think Lane Train has put together a program that can compete at the top of the SEC. Yet what do we have? We've got Lane Train sitting at whatever he was in that ranking, inside the top 10. And so that's what we like to do in college football. Then I look at the Big 10 and I say, hey, everyone thinks Oregon's going to have this huge year. They're going to roll into the Big 10. They're going to potentially compete to win that conference. What happens if Oregon loses some games they shouldn't lose? So when I look around college football, I agree the ACC is definitely the caboose of college football right now. You've got one team in that conference that may compete, for a national championship, and it may not. And that's obviously Florida State. So I think the best conference in college football, is the SEC. But I do think the Big 12 gets a ton of hate that maybe isn't warranted at this time.
Yeah, I don't know. I look at the New York Times and Athletic, which are the same thing, by the way, and their preseason poll, and you look at the top 10 teams in the country, it's very clear where the national media bias is, justifiably so. Totally understand it. But when I look at teams like Texas A&M, I look at Oregon, I look at Georgia. How does Georgia not backslide? after what has been. Is it even a discussion that they've had a disastrous offseason?
No, I would say that's spot on.
I mean, Georgia has really had a terrible summer. I would expect them to falter. I mean, there are incredibly high expectations on Oregon entering the Big Ten. I look at Texas, Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss. I don't know. I don't know that any team in this country can retire a legend like Nick Saban, but yet have a better offseason than Alabama's had.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I understand that we're Alabama fans and SEC homers. I totally get it.
Right.
Brian Kelly's a piece of shit, and I don't think that LSU will ever. There's probably some personal bias in that. Lane Train and his hot ass girlfriend. I think that by the end of the season, will Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss be top 10? I think that's a huge question mark. All of that to say, they're in a Big 12 team in here. And I take great umbrage with those who say the Big 12 doesn't have quality football programs. Now, is Colorado going to win 6-7 games? I don't know. They could win 3. They could win 8. Looking at their schedule.
Do you believe?
I'm not counting on them to be one of the stalwarts
Right.
of the Big 12. I'm not counting on them for that. When I look at the top of the Big 12, there's 2 teams that stand out to me as potentially elite football teams. It is the University of Utah and the Kansas Jayhawks. Those are the 2 teams in this league. Although Spike Dykes' kid in Fort Worth, I don't know what Sonny Dykes is paying people or what nudes he's got. His coaching staff, I mean, to add a guy like Dana Holgerson to his staff,
Mm-hmm.
that on its own, okay, Dana's a guy that you believe could be really spectacular, right? And you look at that coaching staff and you say to yourself, okay, well, Dana, that's a huge pickup. But then you start to understand that Todd Graham was added to Sonny Dykes' staff as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's unbelievable to me that Todd Graham and Dana Holgerson are joining a staff that's already pretty damn good.
Yeah, and Dana's a guy that, obviously, gets run out of Houston, and maybe is one of those guys, who is better suited to be an assistant on whatever label you want to put on him, right? He instead of him being the head coach, it would be better for him to be in a secondary role supporting a guy like Sonny. So to me, I mean, it's hard to hires, but if you ask someone nationally, the infamous, soccer writer in Minnesota, or the infamous person sitting on the East Coast who never watches Big 12 football, if you ask them to put a poll together, nobody's going to bring up TCU. But the fact is, TCU is that team every year that beats people they shouldn't beat.
But that's because they're not Big 12 homers like we are on this show.
Right.
And I think my main point in this is, I think the Big 12 is getting vastly underrated across the country. And while I don't believe that Oak State, as we've talked about on this show, is elite, I look at Kansas and I say to myself, there's no reason Kansas can't win 9 games. Now K-State, I need to see it.
Yeah.
I need to see it. I think that's a 7-win team in Manhattan. I think that Oak State's a 6-7-win team. I look at TCU, that should be an 8-win team. The real wild card in this conference, and I'm glad nobody is talking about Texas Tech, because you're probably tired of hearing me say it, because again, we're Big 12 homers on this show.
Right.
You're probably tired of hearing me say it. This is a critical year for Joey McGuire. And if Texas Tech does not win 8-9 games with that schedule, I am telling you now that Joey McGuire should be fired.
Well, Texas Tech is one of those teams that the Big 12 has to have. I mean, as a conference, if you can have, like this year, if you can have Texas Tech, Utah, Okie Light, and Kansas competing to win the conference throughout the majority of the season. That's what you're looking for. If you can have Utah be in every single week, be in the top 10 of the AP, if you can get them in at like 9 or 10 every week, and then if you can get a couple of teams in that 10 to 20 range for most of the year and then trend them upward as we get to playoff time, that is a conference is what you need to happen. And I think that a 7-win season out of Joey just is not good enough this year after what happened last year.
And I don't want to hear a fucking word on this show. If they go to the Palouse and lose, I don't want to hear a word. You're dead to me, Joey. If they go to Washington State on September 7th and Texas Tech loses, you're dead to me. Because I'm tired of hearing about this conference, and I'm tired of hearing about not having a blue blood. That's you, Texas Tech. That we're talking to you. Texas Tech should be better than they are. And Joey McGuire, you better go to the Palouse and you better win. And you better show up at Arizona in Tucson on October 5th undefeated. You better not have lost the game. And frankly, if you're Texas Tech, and I know I'm being harsh, but I don't think Joey McGuire's earned the level of respect and deference he's getting.
Totally agree.
And you look at that schedule, Abilene Christian in 32 days. At Washington State, North Texas, Arizona State, Cincinnati, at Arizona. If you do not show up at Arizona undefeated, and I understand Arizona's supposed to go undefeated, and they're the best team anybody's ever seen in this conference in the history of the world.
Hey, you start talking shit.
I'm telling you now, if you do not go to Tucson, and I will even take the next step and say, if you do not come out of Tucson with a victory, I'm going to be incredibly disappointed because I need you on that wall on October 19th against Baylor.
Yeah.
It's got to happen. If we're truth telling, you should win every game ahead of TCU in Fort Worth.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a 3-loss schedule at most.
I think your biggest potholes here are Tucson for Arizona, at TCU, at Iowa State is going to be an incredibly difficult game, and at Oak State. That's the last month or so of your season. If you lose at home, you don't even fucking go back to your office. If you lose at home, go hug and kiss the players, park your ass in your car, and head for the hills.
Pack everything up. We're out of here.
Head for the hills. Because if you lose at home, it's inexcusable.
Yeah.
It's this conference, when we are talking about the well-being of this conference, Texas Tech is going to be largely responsible for that. And I don't want to hear 2 words about, oh, Monty, Dave Aranda, 8-ball, Baldy down there. He's an amazing human being. That's great. There's a lot of amazing human beings, and they don't win fucking games either. Right? I mean, we are talking about an existential crisis for the Big 12, where there are many believers in this country that the ACC has a more stable existence than the Big 12. You want to know why that is? Because Baylor didn't fire Dave Aranda.
Yeah.
Because Joey McGuire doesn't win big games in Laramie at Texas Tech. That's why. And you look at Baylor's schedule, there are a few excuses on this schedule. Obviously, you got to come to Sac Lake City on September 7th. I would expect you to get your ass beat.
Yeah.
Okay, great. You better beat Tarleton. You better beat Air Force. You better go to Boulder.
Yeah, see, that's the one they're going to lose.
You better go to Boulder, 8-ball, and you better beat Dion.
I sifted through all that.
I saw a preview. I think it was on Athlon yesterday, Athlon Sports. It said Deion Sanders will win 2, might, and the phrasing I believe was might win 3 games this year. If you don't go to Boulder and beat Dion, again, okay, fine. BYU in Waco. I saw another, that same preview said BYU will win 4 games this year, which I think is complete garbo.
Yeah.
But are you telling me that if Baylor isn't 5-0 heading to Ames October 5th to take on Iowa State, are you telling me if they're not 5-0 that you're not disappointed?
Well, I think the only one there that I would say that is, like you said, is probably not a win is Utah. Other than that, I think that, to me, Colorado's got trap game written all over it for 8-ball and
Does
Baylor.
Baylor win a road game? At Utah, at Colorado, at Iowa State, at Texas Tech, at West Virginia, good luck, at Houston.
They'll win that.
I think Houston is going to be the team that is going to piss people off
And
this
I
year.
think
Because I think Willie Fritz is going to have that team and that talent playing at a very high level.
Yeah, I think the problem is, and I'm happy to be the asshole that says it. I think that Texas Tech game, that's one where I could see that being a kind of a showdown, because you're in the middle of your season at that point. You never know what the injury situation is going to be. So let's say that Texas Tech rolls into that game, home game for them, and they've lost their quarterback and they're playing with their backup, and maybe they have an offensive lineman out. That game's going to be a hell of a lot closer than you would think it would be today. So that's what I'm saying. When you look at Baylor's schedule, like, really, they're going to lose to Utah. I have no doubt about that. You're going to beat Houston. And then I think Texas Tech is a big time 50-50 type game. That's right in the middle of your season. If they show up to Texas Tech as let's call it a one-loss team, they're obviously got a lot more to play for at that point with 8-ball and Baylor. You got a lot to play for. So you're obviously going to be a lot more motivated than if you're a 3-loss team having yet another disappointing season. So I don't know if we should be disappointed if they show up and they're not undefeated, but you should be disappointed if you have more than one loss, certainly.
And then I've saved the most shocking take for last. Now, you guys know that I'm a Florida man, right? Like, you guys understand that I have deep, passionate, love-making feelings for Florida State. You guys already know that. We've established that on the program. But if you look at the Big 12, I think the wild card in this league for a potential 8-9 win season is UCF. Because you want to talk about a schedule that's built to beat people's ass. Here are their road games. Week 3 at TCU, week 5 at Florida. Those are 2 very winnable games. Week 7 at Iowa State. That's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Week 10 at Arizona State. Week 11 at West Virginia. And then they get Utah at the bounce house to end the season. That's an 8-win schedule, 8-9 win schedule. You're going to beat New Hampshire, Sam Houston. I think you're going to go to TCU and win. I think you're going to beat Colorado at home. I think you're going to beat Florida at the Swamp. I think you're going to beat Cincinnati at home for 6. You're going to lose to Iowa State. You're going to beat BYU for 7. You're going to beat Arizona for 8. You're going to beat Arizona State for 9. You're going to lose to West Virginia and Utah to end the season. That's an 8-9 win team at UCF.
Yep.
And nobody's talking about it. Nobody is. And don't. UCF is, trust me when I say, you find a fan, a UCF fan, you're like, nah, we don't exist. Don't say 2 words about us.
Yeah.
And I think they love that because they're going to take their respect. All of this to say, I believe the Big 12 is far better than people give them credit for.
Yeah, and I think that the people, if you're reading something or watching something and they're sitting here telling you that, the ACC is more stable than the Big 12, I think that's a pretty rough take. I think that the Big 12 is the best basketball conference in the country. Did they have a good year in the tournament this year? No. But that doesn't mean that they're not pound for pound, in my opinion, the best basketball conference in the country. You are deep, and every year you have a ton of teams in that thing. So maybe this year they'll turn that around. But then you look at the football side, and again, I think the Big 12's biggest problem is that it's just too inconsistent. Some years you're going to look at the Big 12 and you're going to say, yeah, hey, Baylor's having a good year. Tech's having a good year. Utah's having a good year. Both the Kansas schools are hitting. Right? Okie Light, while they're drunk, might still be winning ball games. So, there are some years where the Big 12 will have 5, 6, 7 teams that are really good in the mix, can beat anybody at any time. And then other years, it's 2 teams. And Every conference goes through that except for one conference, and that's the SEC, where they've got 5 teams every year that are going to beat your ass no matter where you play them.
Well, and I also look at the Big Ten, and you start looking at which teams in the Big Ten are going to be elite. If Ohio State doesn't win every game, including their scrimmages, the powder puff game, the flag football game, I mean, if they don't win every game that's played, it's going to be disappointing. I think they're going to be very good. I don't know what to make of Oregon, because it has traditionally been very difficult to bring in a bunch of dudes and play at a very high level. We've seen that especially over the last 2 years. When rosters have high turnover in football, it's been very difficult for those teams to be elite. But when you have a coach the caliber of Dan Lanning, and you have the talent and the depth that they have, now, of course, you're replacing, Bo Nix, but look at who you're replacing them with, one of the top quarterback recruits in the portal, right? So I'm going to give Dan Lanning the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say that Ohio State and Oregon will be elite. But if you look at the bottom half of the conference, I think one of the biggest questions in the Big Ten is, how good is Nebraska? Nebraska's a 6-7 win team. They're not an 8, 9, 10 win team.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not potentially pushing for a playoff spot in Lincoln, not this year. I think next year. I look at Michigan State's got a long way to go. Michigan State's not talented, and I think so you're going to have a tough time there. Purdue's not talented. I think Indiana's the worst team in the conference. And as we had a huge fight on this show last week, when I defecated all over Lincoln Riley and talked about how I believe that with the changes he's made, how good is USC? And again, when I look at, you want to talk about ball busters, boys, we look at some of the schedules in the Big Ten, and I'm curious, what does Washington look like this year? With, again, you don't traditionally bring in all kinds of change coming out of a national championship appearance. It's very difficult to keep that bar high, but Jed Fish is a hell of a human being.
Yeah.
And a really good coach. But he's also got Weber State to open the season. I don't have high hopes for that game for Weber State or Eastern Michigan or Washington State or Northwestern. Washington doesn't leave home until they fly all the way across the country to Rutgers. And I don't think they lose a game until they go to Pedo State on November 9th. I think that Washington has that kind of season at their disposal. Now, do they live up to that hype? We'll find out.
Yeah, nice to see him ending with Oregon, too. So
we'll find out.
Could be major college football playoff implications.
Weber State, Eastern Michigan, Washington State, Northwestern, at Rutgers, Michigan. That game's at Husky Stadium, at Iowa, at Indiana. Iowa's also a wild card in the Big Ten this year. From what I understand now, obviously there's rumors and fake news all over the place. But from what I understand, they actually have offensive players on scholarship this year at Iowa. I know that's never happened ever.
Do those scholarships have money behind them, or how'd they get those guys?
I understand they're going to play offense. They're actually going to have offensive coordinators and stuff in Iowa City this year. I would watch out for Iowa. Indiana's not going to be good. And then, again, I look at Pedo State, and I say to myself, should we expect Penn State to beat Virginia, or West Virginia and Morgantown?
Yes.
To kick off the season.
Yes.
That game is 1 month from today.
If you're the real deal at Penn State this year, you'll win that game. You will. But they'll probably find a way to lose that game.
I think West Virginia, again, Neil Brown needs fired. I totally understand it.
Every year.
But West Virginia has an opportunity I shouldn't even say it. I don't know if Mike Smith is here today or not. Mike Smith is here. Those douchebag duck little promos are so lame.
Yeah.
I could not agree more. It's not possible for me to agree
I mean,
with that
that's
more.
the problem with Dan Lanning in Oregon, dude. You look at that program and you're like, damn, dude, like, yeah, you've won enough to be arrogant about it, but damn, like a duck at every road game you're going to. Come on, bro. Come on. Be better.
I hate that thing so much.
It's so obnoxious.
That inflatable duck. Suck it. I hate that thing so much. All of that to say, when I look at the Big Ten, I also think that Illinois has a chance to win 7 games. I think, if we're truth telling, who's going to be better, Iowa or Iowa State? That's a really interesting question.
Probably State, because I think that Iowa State is probably a little more complete team, and they play very physical football. Like, that's why they're so tough to beat, because they just pound you.
Yeah. I mean, you look at some of the win totals. Vegas has Oregon winning 11 games.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand, again, I totally understand that it's Oregon, it's Dan Lanning. But when I look at Dylan Gabriel and Jabbar Muhammad and the guys that he brought in there, it's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out. And we're going to find out October 12th against Ohio State. And I think that's going to be amazing. How good is Wisco? How good is Wisconsin this year? Does Wisconsin win 9 games? Does Wisconsin, if we're truly truth telling, and we look at Wisco, and I think they have a chance. Wisconsin has a chance to win 9 games. Western Michigan, South Dakota, Alabama at Camp Randall Stadium. You want to win 9 games? Beat Alabama on September 14th, which I think Jalen Milroe winning the Heisman Trophy, so I think that's going to be very difficult to do. But look at Wisconsin's schedule. Western Michigan, South Dakota, Alabama, at USC, Purdue, at Rutgers, Northwestern, the Pedo State boys, at Iowa, Oregon, at Nebraska, Minnesota.
Yeah, that's not a 9-win schedule, bro. That's 6.
You're going to start with 2 wins. You're going to beat Purdue for 3. You're going to beat Rutgers for 4. You're going to beat Northwestern for 5. You're going to get Sandusky against Penn State. You're going to lose at Iowa. You're going to lose to Oregon. You're going to lose to Nebraska. I think you win 5 or 6 games.
Yeah.
I don't see him winning 7 games.
That stretch of Penn State, Iowa, Oregon, Nebraska, Petter State. That's tough.
You have a stretch. The Purdue game becomes vital. That is the game where you have to win that. But then again, I just go back and I look at Illinois. And I think the schedule makers in the Big Ten sacrificed the bottom half of this conference. Listen to Illinois' schedule. Eastern Illinois.
Okay.
Better win that game, Coach. Because then it's Kansas, Central Michigan.
Well, hold on. Central Michigan, we know the story there, right? Sign stealer guys on the sideline. So that's, that could be a tough game.
At Nebraska. Central Michigan is going to be good. Kansas, Central Michigan. At Nebraska, at Pedo State. Purdue, Michigan, at Oregon, Minnesota, Michigan State at Rutgers, at Northwestern. The middle stretch of that schedule.
Dude,
and
you're
listen,
done, bro.
Brett Bielema's a fat fucking whale ass. I totally get it.
Hey.
As somebody who grew up loving Jeff George at Illinois, just honest to God, can you imagine Brett Bielema hanging upside down and people taking practice for archery on his bag? That's what this schedule is. Because I don't know how you explain Kansas, Nebraska, Penn State, Michigan, and Oregon on their schedule pretty much in a 6-week period. I did wake up and choose violence today.
Yeah, that's a rough schedule, dude.
Admittedly.
That's tough.
I mean, I Illinois, and then I look at Michigan, and I think Michigan's one of the biggest question marks in the conference. You have an easy schedule. You have a couple of landmines. Texas, obviously, Oregon, obviously, Ohio State to end the season, but that's every year. But your Fresno State, Texas, Arkansas State, USC, Minnesota. Then you go to Washington, at Illinois, Michigan State, Oregon. Oregon's at home. Indiana. I would expect this to be a one-loss schedule. And if it's more than one loss, I would be incredibly disappointed.
Okay. If Michigan takes a step back, we think they're going to take, right? All the talent turnover, obviously the coaching stuff.
Yeah, they're probably half as deep as they were last year.
So taking that into consideration, looking at their schedule, like Texas, there's a good chance you're going to lose to Texas, right? Oregon coming to your place, dude, that's got Dan Lanning putting another clip on ESPN about how, they're not playing for clicks, they're playing for wins at the big house. So that's one where I look at that and I say, yeah, you probably should beat Oregon at home, but will you actually beat Oregon at home? Because that's one that Dan Lanning is going to go in there and have his team like ready to go. Because what's Michigan's mantra been? Hey, we're going to kick your ass in the trenches. Yeah, but you're not going to do that against Oregon because that's what Oregon does. So that's what I'm saying. You look at their schedule and, theoretically, yeah, it should be a couple of landmines, like you said. But again, I'm a big believer that, when you're playing physical football and you get Oregon in the middle of that schedule, it would be very easy to drop that game at home.
I think Donovan Edwards has to be arguably the best running back in the country for this team to win 7 games. If Donovan Edwards is not 5 yards a carry, if he's not 7 yards a carry, they're not going to win. Because if he's 7 yards a carry at Michigan, what does that tell you? Their offensive line is dominating, and they are more than serviceable throwing the football.
Yeah.
Donovan Edwards has to be 7 yards a carry for Michigan to consider 9-10 games. If he's the same old Donovan Edwards that's always banged up, 4 yards a carry, they're gonna win 6-7 games. It's gonna be that kind of. And honest to God, you look up and down their roster, and you don't anymore have J.J. McCarthy, who was the perfect quarterback in the perfect situation at the perfect time.
Yeah,
you don't have that anymore. And I think that for everything that J.J. McCarthy was not, he was never spectacular. J.J. McCarthy wasn't going to be the guy that was going to kill you. Now, he wasn't going to win you games. That much I think we all understood. But J.J. McCarthy was never going to kill you. And now you look at Alex Orji, or you go up and down this roster, and you're starting to understand Michigan's offense is going to be predicated on running the football and the tight end dominating. So you're going to play a lot of reps in the middle of the field. And in this conference, I don't know that that's what carries the mail anymore, because you look at how spread out Ohio State's going to be. You look at Oregon and SC, they're going to be spread out. They're going to be machines. I don't know that you can, if you put who's one of the best running teams in the country? West Virginia. I don't know that West Virginia can compete in the Big Ten with that kind of offense. What is going to be, and I don't think we'll know this, but what is the offensive identity of the Michigan Wolverines going to be?
I think it'll be more of the same. I think it's exactly what you're talking about. I think, Sharon is going to get that team to be right in, lockstep with what Jim had going, which is not the cheating stuff, but just the identity that Jim had kind of set forth, and what we're seeing with the Chargers, right? A ground and pound physical team that prides himself on running the football. That's what they're going to try to do. The problem is that, Jim has shown the ability to do that wherever he's been, We know that, right? Like the 49ers, Michigan, obviously. Like there's been plenty of stops. Jim's shown he can do that, but I don't think that we know what Sharon is yet. The guy won one ball game.
And let's not kid ourselves. When we're talking about Michigan football, Wink Martindale might be the most important figure in Michigan football this year, because you look at the defense, you've pretty much lost everybody. And I agree, Josiah Stewart's one of the best incoming guys in the conference. Really, he could be one of the most impactful defensive players in the conference. And I'm somebody that believes passionately in Wink Martindale as a football coach. But you don't come in as a first-year coordinator with a bunch of new dudes and defend the way they defended last year. Fuck, I don't know that anybody will ever defend the way Michigan defended last year. They were elite. They were really good. I think this could be a 7-win season. And I think with all the drama, with all of the nuancical stuff that we're seeing, I think there's a real chance that Michigan does take that. And I don't even think you would be upset with Sharon Moore if they won 7 games.
No, not at all. Nope.
Because I think it's really difficult to estimate the impact that kind of turnover has. And nobody's replacing Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
That's going to be difficult. Anyway, how many games do you guys think Michigan wins? Who's the best team in the Big Ten?
Ohio State.
How do you say anybody but Ohio State?
Yeah.
So does Ohio State live up to it and win 12 games? I don't know. The Michigan game's always a toss-up, right? But I believe that game's at the Shoe this year. It is at the Shoe this year. So I think you would give that to Ohio State, especially with what's in flux and what we just talked about with Michigan. But here is Ohio State's schedule. And nobody is going to mistake this for the best schedule in the country, which is why I think 12 games is the bar minimum, with a month to go before kickoff. Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, at Michigan State, Iowa. I mean, I don't think there's any question you're 5-0 going to Autzen.
100% agree.
Does Ohio State go to Autzen and win?
No.
I think they do. Because that defense is... I don't know that we have seen a Big Ten defense with this much paper talent. Do you? I could be wrong.
I don't think that the reason I don't think they beat Oregon at Autzen is because I don't think that Ryan Day has quite figured out how to get his team to embrace physicality at the level they need to. I think they're incredibly talented. I think that they're going to beat the hell out of pretty much everybody. And the only way that you're going to get to is by beating their ass in the first quarter and sending a message.
Mm-hmm.
And you may be losing after the first quarter of that ball game if you're Oregon, but you're not. You're going to be sending that message like, hey, we're going to hit you hard. We're going to make you pay a price. And that's where I've seen, like, whether it was, and again, Michigan was historically good last year. Give them all the credit in the world.
They were.
But the reason Ohio State lost that game early was because of how physical the run game was for Michigan.
Oregon 11, I'm taking the under on that, Bemis says. Well, that's a really interesting take.
Yeah.
Because I think you're in the majority. You're in the majority. And I think Ohio State's going to go to Autzen and win. This is Ryan Day's farewell tour if they don't.
Well,
and I think, and another good question here from James Littles. Does a 3-loss team from the Big Ten make the playoff? Ask me who the 3-loss team is.
Yeah, that's going to be really dependent.
Is Michigan a 3-loss team? Well, what are those 3 losses? Because Michigan is a 3-loss team, does not get in. Does Ohio State get in as a 3-loss team? Absolutely not. Because that means that you probably lost to Oregon, Penn State, and Michigan. Because those are the only 3 losable games on this schedule. I think they're going to beat the hell out of Nebraska. You look again, Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, Michigan State, and Iowa. I don't know that any of those 5 games are within 2 touchdowns.
Right.
Oregon's a toss-up. Nebraska, I think they're significantly more talented than Nebraska. At Penn State, that's another game. What time is that game going to be
Well,
played?
I was just gonna say if that's a night game, whiteout, that's a really tough game. But I feel like
Happy Ending Valley at night in a whiteout.
Yeah, like that's really tough. But I feel like looking at this schedule, the way this schedule sets up, if they can beat Oregon at Oregon, you're cooking up an undefeated schedule right there.
And if they beat Oregon and go into a bye week, Matt Rule might not survive the trip. Because if they lose the Oregon game, Jesus Christ, Nebraska, bring body bags to take your boys home. Because I think Ohio State has such high expectations. I mean, you're talking about 12 wins is their expectation. How do you live up to that? You have to be perfect, essentially. So I think this is a really interesting question. Does a 3-loss Big Ten team? I don't think so either.
I don't think so.
Because again, Chaboy and his hot ass girlfriend, I think the SEC is deep this year. And I know Texas is never back.
But like Texas is the perfect example. Do you understand how disrespectful it is to Bama and Georgia to say that Texas is going to come in here year one and win that conference? I am not believing they're winning anything until they show that they can beat Georgia. Did you beat Bama last year? Yeah, you did. And that was a great win. Absolutely, positively, phenomenal win early part of the schedule. However, that does not mean that you're going to come in here every single week without any gimmies from the Big 12 and win the SEC. That's the part that I have trouble with. That's one of those, hey, Texas is amazing, Sark's recruiting, they're super talented. Like, I get it. But you're talking about coming into the best conference in the country and winning the whole conference. I just don't. I'll believe it when I see it. But I do think that Texas will be in the mix, obviously, the whole season. I have questions about whether you're going to go on the road and beat the best of the best. That's the hard part.
I don't have any question about Texas. I think that's one of the best coaching staffs in the country. I think when I look at Texas, I look at their inability to play slowly. And I look how deep they are. I look at Quinn Ewers, again, another guy in the SEC that's a Heisman candidate. Now, I also think, what does Vegas have? Vegas has them at 10. Right. And it's interesting when we look at Quinn Ewers. This will be his last year at Texas.
Yeah.
He's a Heisman candidate any way you slice it. But what I'm contemplating in my head is, what's it going to take for Texas fans to start bitching about Arch Manning? Because that's your biggest concern on offense. Other than that, you're absolutely. You are a team that I think you don't ever worry about what it will take to win games. The offensive line is a behemoth at Texas. Phil Steele will not stop talking about the offensive line at Texas. And hey, man, I totally get it. But with this schedule that we're going to go over here for Texas, how many games? Just count them off. Colorado State, if that game was in Colorado in the Springs, I'd be probably picking Colorado State to make it close. You're going to get your ass beat in Austin. At Michigan, September 7th.
Should be a win.
Tulsa, UL Monroe, Mississippi State, Oklahoma.
That back-to-back is what I'm talking about. So on paper, they should roll both of those teams. But what I'm going to tell you, and you watch and see, that Mississippi State game is going to be closer. That's going to be one of those second half games where you're in the middle of your season. Maybe Mississippi State gives you some fight early in the game. Turnover here. That's the kind of game where you got to win that if you're going to win the SEC.
But you come out of Mississippi State back at home, DKR. And then it's the Red River Shootout
Yep.
off of a bye week.
Who the hell knows if you're going to win that game or not? That game is always a toss-up.
And then what I think could be the game of the year in the conference, Texas and Georgia. I don't think they lose a game unless they lose to Georgia. Because I am not buying Texas A&M. I am not. And I understand that Texas A&M, and I love my guy Trev Alberts. I do. I believe in him, and not yet. You haven't even paid a penny to Jimbo yet. Right? So I think if they lose to Georgia, that's when we're going to find out who Texas is.
Yeah, I think that Oklahoma game is a toss-up. Like, obviously, on paper, Texas should win that game. Should have won it last year. Did you? No. So, who the hell knows? I mean, again, it took Dylan Gabriel playing his ass off to win that game for Oklahoma. So, who knows? But yeah, theoretically, you should be undefeated or one loss. And that one loss should be Georgia.
All right, let's get to the comment section. As always, presented by our friends at Prize Picks, prizepicks.com. Download the Prize Picks app. Use the promo code Monty, an unbelievable deal. It is, and you guys are going to say, well, Monty, I'm not getting a cut of shit. I'm just telling you.
Who are you, Jimbo Fisher?
It's just that day. I'm just telling you, this is the best daily fantasy promotion I have ever seen from anybody. You deposit $5 in a new account at Prize Picks, they're going to give you $50. I said you put in $5, they're going to give you $50. All you have to do is use the promo code Monty. MONTY, Monty at prizepicks.com or in the Prize Picks app. Sign up for a new account. MONTY, Monty. Use the promo code Monty. Monty.
Hey, Marty.
MONTY. The promo code Monty. You deposit $5 in a new account, they're going to give you $50. It is the best deal I've ever seen. You can play an entire football season on $55. It is ridiculous. It is incredible. And the thing I like about Prize Picks, I say it every single day. U.S. Olympic basketball, I was looking at it before the show today when I was setting up my Prize Picks, which I actually did not finalize. Because I decided to weigh myself, which was one of the stupidest fucking things I've ever done. LeCap, La Olympic, La Gold Medal. LeBron James.
Yeah.
6.5 assists, more or less.
Gotta go more.
LeBron James. La Bum, La Dad, La Gramps. 15.5 points, more or less, against South Sudan today. That game's at 1 o'clock tip. 1 o'clock Mountain, 2 o'clock Central, 3 o'clock Eastern. I'm going more on LeBron James at 15.5.
LeBron.
I'm also going more on Steph Curry at 12.5.
Got to look at Jason Tatum.
You got to shut up. I'm going more on Anthony Davis at 11.5. Because I think, and listen, I like my guys from South Sudan. Luol Deng, who I've continually supported throughout my career in sports because the guy's a king amongst men.
Yeah.
Must include at least 2 players from different teams. God damn it. Who's more likely? I'm actually, believe it or not, I think I'm going to have to dump Steph Curry from my prediction.
So I said, yeah.
Wow,
I think that's what I'm going to have to do. Because I think Anthony Davis is going to have a monster game. But then again, there's my guy, Devin Buckets Booker.
Yeah.
How about 3-pointers made? Let's go with that. Jose Alvarado. I just want to punch him in the face. I hate Jose Alvarado.
The great bench hider.
What about Nikola Jokic?
Yeah.
At 21.5 points.
I mean, that's a pretty reliable.
I'm going to go Nikola Jokic, 6.5 assists more. And then I am going to go Carlik Jones, 30.5 points, rebounds, and assists against the U.S. That'll get you swole below the waist.
Yeah.
Boy, that's tough, dude. There are some tough numbers in Olympic basketball today. Again, they'll give you $50 to play 5. Man,
Yeah. Open your account. Tell us what your picks are.
that's really tough. Some of these rebound numbers. Joel Embiid 5.5 rebounds, more or less.
More.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really tough.
Got to look at KD at 15 points.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you do.
Shut up.
Yeah, you do.
Shut up. All right.
Yeah.
Rock solid. Prize Picks. Download the app. You deposit $5 in a new account. They'll give you $50. Hook it up. PrizePicks.com, the official daily fantasy partner of the Marty program.
Hey, Marty.
James. Stadium guy who loves the Big 12. I think West Virginia could compete in the Big 10. They are better than everyone in the Big 10 except Oregon and Ohio State.
That's cute. I remember when I had my first beer.
Bro.
I've always enjoyed. See, James, and admittedly, James has a problem with crack cocaine, admittedly. But what that addiction yields is just some of the most ridiculous statements like West Virginia are better than everyone except Oregon and Ohio State.
So I said, yeah.
Oh, James.
That was a good one, James. Thanks.
Oh,
really,
James.
that was awesome.
Mike Smith, Mountain Mama. Jeff George, all that freaking talent and mullet. But nothing above the neck except the mullet. That's exactly right. Oak State James, does he redeem himself? Not a fucking chance. Just like the Big 12 title game will be a rematch between Utah and Oak State.
Hey, are you going to be watching that from the second deck, or
You still believe that Oak State is going to the Big 12 title game? You believe that? Okay. The Big 10 title game will be a rematch of Oregon versus Ohio State. Okay. Man, I hope I am. It would be so good for me on this show if Oak State goes undefeated. And, if Mike Gundy, who had self-admittedly drives drunk all the time,
Because it's illegal.
if Mike Gundy wins National Coach of the Year and Preston Stone is absolutely just raw dogging Oak State James.
Macaque.
Because don't forget, Oak State James is head over heels in love with Preston Stone.
You got to get stroked. Honestly, I'd start stroking guys.
I need the Conor McGregor absolutely no one. Because James,
dude,
I would like to apologize to no one.
Bro.
Oh, Preston Stone. Oh, Preston, do it again.
And it's very powerful.
Preston's going deep tonight, boys. Okay, I should probably move on. No to Penn State. How good is Penn State this year? Washington is the whiteout game. Okay. OG Gary, it's PSU. They're addicted to 10-2. Okay. Does a 2-loss Penn State get into the college football playoff?
Potentially. Depends on what the other teams have done.
The Chad Carter. I have to look, but I think someone had to cancel a series with Ohio State for this year, thus the 3 MAC non-conference games. Who cares? More wins for everybody. Oh boy. Brian Parrish.
Oh dear.
Oh my. Iowa's going to be using the Kyle Shannon offense. Who's Kyle Shannon?
Yeah, who's Kyle Shannon? I don't know who Kyle
and
Shannon
the 49ers are excited to go to the Super Bowl again.
Oh, dear. Oh, my.
Okay. Last comment ever from that guy. James, Texas is as good as any team in the SEC. Did you guys hear Texas is back? Did you guys hear Texas is back?
Well, and you thought that Texas is going to win the SEC. I mean, you've been saying that. So, James, I mean, thanks for the reporting, dude. Thank you.
But here's the question. Why isn't Preston Stone on Texas? He's better than Arch and Quinn. I mean, he's got Dallas. Dallas on his chest, though. The only team I think is better is Georgia. Raw Dog was probably too far.
James, are you a glizzy guy? Are you a big glizzy guy? Like, what's the situation on that? Do you like a glizzy off the roller, or what's the deal?
Wow, there's so many jokes. Justin Bemis, dumbest thing ever said by a Texas QB, Sam Ehlinger. We're back with Tom Lame Herman as his head coach. God, Tom Herman.
Yeah, that was rough, dude.
That's Bemis. This is probably before your time, but at one point, Tom Herman, his name was banned on the show. I did not. Okay. Welcome to the night here. How about USA men's soccer making it to the knockout round after a 24-year drought?
Yeah.
We led the show with it.
Yeah,
like
man.
it's the biggest news in sports,
Dude. Soccer is just so incredible.
In all seriousness, it's as we kick off hour number 2 on the Monty Show. Let me ask you this: do you care about the Olympics? Now, as I watched USA Women's Gymnastics in their $5,000, what? Like, you have that ability to just fucking piss me off. Like, not everything about women has to do with sex, just so you know. I was watching USA Women's Gymnastics in their $5,000 Swarovski crystal leotards. 5,000, okay. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, I'm genuinely interested in this. Like I really have been into the gymnastics. The men's gymnastics the other night was spectacular. You know, nerdy boy with his glasses off on the pommel horse was spectacular. But I do not feel the buzz of it being an Olympic year. I don't feel people genuinely excited for the Olympics. Like, I'm really excited for Olympic golf this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I am really excited for, USA basketball against South Sudan today. I'm excited for the triathlon and all the people that are going to get E. coli and shit themselves for a year after they swim in that river. Like, I'm excited for it. I'm into the Olympics. And yet track and field hasn't even started. And it just, I don't know. Am I the only one? I don't feel like there's this great bit of excitement about USA men's soccer, playing at a very high level.
Yeah, I think the problem with this Olympics so far is that, a lot of people, got rubbed the wrong way with some stuff in the opening ceremony. And then you've got things like the river and, it just is, there's been some issues with it. Now, I do think the fact that it's in Paris is helping it a lot. I think Paris is a city that globally is romanticized. Everyone wants to go to Paris, including myself. So I think that's helping it for sure. But I think that it doesn't quite have the same buzz about it as like I remember, the last Winter Olympics were terrible. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, the snow sucks, like that. Everyone was complaining about the last Winter Olympics, but there have been Olympics prior to that people were really into and excited about. And it was like this whole thing. So I don't know. Yeah, I would agree that it doesn't feel as big of a deal, but I think the problem is also the timing of it. Like, sports fans are in this place where we don't really have a lot to talk about right now. Like, we've got the Olympics, but other than that, we're basically talking about Jerry being an idiot with his contracts and the Dodgers seemingly getting whoever the hell they want at the trade deadline. And that's about it. We're still, like, tomorrow, at least we get to talk about the Hall of Fame game, right? We get to see that, Tyson Bagent's going to come out and show us all why he's a backup. Like, at least we get to talk about that.
You mean Bagent? Tyson Bagent?
Sure.
Is that what you mean? Why are they not playing Caleb? Don't get me started. I don't have the energy for that today. I think you look at the Olympics, and I would agree. We like the now, the here and the now. And I think the NFL, college football, the Dodgers at the trade deadline. How? I don't understand it. And yet I still find myself watching the Olympics. Is what it is. James, is what happens when you use acid as a communion wafer. Wow. Jesus. No pun intended. Oak State James is the worst part about me saying raw dog in relation to Oak State James is that he is actually a pastor. And I am a terrible person who,
in God's name, image, and likeness.
Who, if hell is real, it's not. I'm going to hell. I freely admit that saying raw dog about a pastor is probably too real. And actually,
And that's how I look at it.
To tell the truth, James is doing I believe he's writing a thesis paper thing on pedos in the priesthood.
The ink isn't dry yet.
This is off the rails now. Like, I just feel like the perfect circle of raw doggedness. Okay, that's fine. San Diego State Glenn. Raw dogging. Is that taking the raw hot dog off the roller to decrease the chance of it having fecal matter on it? Asking for a friend. I don't eat off of rollers. Jake routinely goes to 7-Eleven and eats off of the rollers.
Right,
so
right.
You'll have to ask Jake. OG Gary. James is Gordon. Gordon. So James has some unrealistic man love for Ollie Gordon at Oak State. And again, he wants a staph infection from
bro.
I'm going to hell. I freely admit it. Roche, good morning. I love the Olympics, especially the Feast of Dionysus Parodies. Okay.
Okay.
Can we just understand? They weren't parroting the Last Supper. You guys get that, right? They weren't parroting, mocking. They weren't doing a parody of the Last Supper. Do you understand? Never mind. I'm not even going into this because as soon as I go into that, I am sure that all the fucking zealots in this country, I'm not watching that. They had a bunch of trans and shut up. And I love everybody who's like, no, it's the opening ceremonies in the Olympics. What's that got to do with sports? Have you ever seen an opening ceremony that was about sports? Oh, you haven't. That's right. Because all of them have culture built into it. Like, and does everything have to be politicized?
Apparently.
God, dog. Come on. We know you love that bratwurst, right? Right? Nothing like a good piece of sausage.
Yeah, juicy.
Brandon Butler. It's missing that beat the USSR national pride kind of thing. There's no real sense of national exceptionalism to cling to, mainly because Russia invaded Ukraine and murdered a bunch of people, so they're not allowed to participate in the Olympics.
Keep it real.
Beijing and London were the most memorable Olympics, but I think it had Michael Phelps' legendary performance and the Redeem team. Don't disagree with that. Phil Venzer, doesn't matter who the Dodgers get, they'll still get swept in the playoffs by the Rockford Peaches. Wow. The Rockford Peaches? Big Gina Davis fan, are you? Wow. Giggity, good morning, sir. Thank you for your service. The women's gymnastics last night felt very anticlimactic because they beat the shit out of everybody.
They did.
Everybody. Yeah. How would you know?
I watched.
You did not. Streaming entertainment options have exploded in availability and variety since the last Olympics, and politics kind of dominates the airwaves for many Americans and election Olympic years recently too. Well,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I do feel like this whole, and again, we're not going to go into it, but this whole thing about the Last Supper and all this nonsense that like surrounded the opening ceremony, at least in our country, is why I think the buzz is less for the Olympics right now. I think people got all in their feels about it and, came to realize so the opening ceremony happens and that situation plays out. And then all these studies come out about how France as a country is one of the least religious countries in the world. And people were like surprised by this. Like
all these heathens, all these trannies.
Yeah. Like people didn't have any idea that France was definitely a different kind of place, not a traditional Western feeling country, because
how dare you?
It's in the middle of Europe and there's loads of history there. So that's why the Olympics don't have the heat.
I can't believe that you would allow these gay people to show themselves.
Yeah, like, it just is.
That's fucking interesting, man.
Did you see him? He was painted up and eating a croissant. How dare you? You've perverted our children. Fuck off. That means you're a terrible parent. Like, I'm just so over all of that tonality. Why do you care if there's gay people? Why do you care if there's straight people? Why do you care if they're black or Hispanic or Asian or American, white? Like, why do you care? What impact does it have on your life? Go, dude, turn off the Olympics. Go back to burning books at the library. Go, that's probably too much. Oak State James gives us $5. I have thick skin.
Oh.
And from what I understand, Preston Stone.
Yes.
My question is, who's got thicker skin? Ollie Gordon or Preston Stone?
Hey, by the way, how many
If I asked Preston Stone, would he agree you have thick skin?
James?
Anyways, you were going to say something important.
No, I wasn't. Go on. Continue.
Okay, good. I have thick skin. It's all good. College football has Oregon versus Ohio State, Texas versus Georgia, Utah versus Oak State this year. This season is going to be awesome. There are so many big games.
Yeah, but I thought we didn't have any more rivalries, and college football was suffering, and the sport's going the wrong direction, and everything's going to hell in a handbasket, apparently. Please.
OG Gary James, are you sure Oak State is making it with a one-dimensional offense?
Well, he's going to give him 50 carries a game, so as punishment.
Yeah.
So
Eric Wasikowski. So Marty supports child porn. Wow, man, you finally outed me.
Holy cow, bro.
You've said some stupid shit on this show. I mean, you have said some stupid shit.
This is truly some of your best material right here, bro.
And you wonder why we don't read your comments. Don't wonder anymore. Mike Smith, that might be the dumbest thing you've ever posted, and that's saying something.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Like, come on.
I'm just going to say it. I haven't cared about the Olympics since 2012, and I don't think you're
in all seriousness, Tanner, all jokes aside, do you care more about RSL than the Olympics in an Olympic year?
Yeah, and I also, man, you look at some of the politicizing, like this Caitlin Clark situation. So it was very much a hot button issue, and they didn't want to put her in a position, and nobody is watching the Olympic tournament. Ticket sales for women's Olympic basketball is low.
Mm-hmm.
You get what you pay for. And I think the politicizing of sports in this country, whether it's the opening ceremony or Caitlin Clark or any of this other stuff we always wind up talking about, the Dawn Staley effect, it's crazy to me that we just can't talk about issues on their face, that we can't talk about the fact that Caitlin Clark doesn't belong on the basketball team because she's just not good enough. We got to go to, well, they snubbed her. Hey, come on. I'm kind of over that whole thing. Like I did a TikTok last night about Kamala Harris's speech in Georgia. And we were talking about, the separating reality from momentum. And it's just wild to me that we can't talk about things if we're not allowed to use generalities and half-truths. It's wild to me. Like the idea that the opening ceremonies at the Olympics were child pornography. That's the level we've sunk to in this country. It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. Keith Carl. I'm not logged in for more than 2 seconds, and I'm greeted with Marty supports child porn. I really need to wake up earlier.
You do, bro. You need to get in here in the 6 o'clock.
It's crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to me. They care because their for-profit organizations use fear-mongering to get their 10%. I don't disagree with that. Monty, did you see the celebrity gifted Simone Biles a new Rolls Royce a few days ago? I think the support of Simone Biles has been one of the great storylines of this Olympics. And I think it's really sad that people were happy when she was struggling. I think it's really sad that did you guys see this whole Simone Biles hair thing? First of all, can anybody explain to me why we care about black women's hair so much? I don't understand this trend. Simone Biles is being criticized because she has flyaway hair. And her hair is not, perfectly pinned down. This is my issue. We watch gymnastics for sex appeal. And I've never understood the idea that we can't look at anything other than, my God, that is a great athletic performance. What Simone Biles did last night, that she got up on that balance beam and recovered from what happened in Tokyo, was one of, in my opinion, one of the greatest feats we've ever seen in Olympic gymnastics. Her recovery, the mental recovery that girl's gone through, is simply remarkable. I don't give two shits about her hair. And the fact that, again, we have another black woman, high profile, and we're talking about her hair. Do you understand how ridiculous that is? Do you understand how ridiculous it is? Do you watch gymnastics and all you do is stare at their crotch? Is that what you're doing? Like, I don't get why we do that. And men, we do it. And when I say we, I mean men. We watch women's sports for sex. And I am amazed by that you watched that Olympic opening ceremony and got child pornography out of it. Tells me that's a you problem.
Yeah.
It tells me you have no culture and you are uneducated. That's what it tells me. If you took it, like Danica Patrick, the perfect example of this, she is getting her ass kicked for the things she said about the opening ceremony. Because you simply didn't, the very first time somebody's like, oh man, that's the Last Supper, they're mocking it with a bunch of transsexuals. It tells me you have no idea what you're talking. You are not cultured. You don't know the arts, and you have no idea what you're talking about. And frankly, I agree with what the director of the opening ceremony said. I'm going to sit back and laugh at you. Because it had nothing to do with child pornography or the Last Supper. But that's what we do. And I would also note, where is the outrage for the opening ceremony? Well, of course, it's in America, the United States. You don't see any of the people in Croissant losing their shit about it, do you? No, you don't. Because that's what we do. Do great name France name Monty where people gamble in Monte Carlo? Okay. Look, I don't mind that you come to the show drunk. I just appreciate that you are here.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Oak State James is trying to get us back on track, I think. All three main wide receivers at Oak State are healthy. They won't be one-dimensional. You can't throw the football. You know Preston Stone doesn't play at Oak State, right? Brandon Whedon ain't coming through that door anytime soon. Oh, Alan Bowman. Oh, my God. He's got thick skin, too. I'm sure you know. The only problem is Bowman threw 14 interceptions last year and has to clean up. You're going to clean up 14 INTs when he threw I think he threw the ball 15 times total last season. He threw 14 interceptions. I'd have to go back and double check that stat. Could be wrong. They do have a new tight end. That'll help. Absolutely. Spot on. How you didn't improve the quarter? What happened to a year ago? You were telling me Alan Bowman's just a placeholder. Realistically, do you believe that they win 8 games? And their schedule And I think this is really important to note. Their schedule is not difficult. Oak State's schedule. Let me just make sure that I pull it up, because I don't want to speak out of turn and have Kay Sumbry come in here and ream my ass. Well, I probably shouldn't say that out loud. No disrespect, James. South Dakota State, Arkansas at Tulsa. And then one of your biggest games of the year, September 21st, Jetta. At K-State, West Virginia. At BYU, at Baylor, Arizona State, at TCU, Texas Tech, Colorado. It's not a difficult schedule. Not a difficult schedule. And if we look at Colorado's schedule, North Dakota State at Nebraska, at Colorado State, Baylor at UCF, K-State. That right there is a more difficult schedule, and we're only in early October. Right? I look at Kansas's schedule. Linwood College. At Illinois, UNLV, at West Virginia, TCU, at Arizona State, Houston, at K-State, tough game. Iowa State, tough game. At BYU, Colorado, at Baylor. They're going to win 9 games, 10 games. Because I think you're going to have a tough time. Although the Iowa State game's in Kansas City. You do have to go to Manhattan. I think K-State, that game's always an absolute punch in the dick. So good luck. That's a rivalry game. Other than that, I think your most difficult game is on the road at West Virginia. I'm telling you, Oak State doesn't have a tough schedule.
Yeah.
Tanner Plummer, yes, Jacob. I do care about RSL in an Olympic year.
Yeah, that's a you problem.
Justin Bemis, no rivalries. Yo, J2H, the SEC is bringing back Arkansas and ATM back to Austin, plus creating new ones. It'll be awesome year of football. It will be. I think Texas has rivalries. I think they do. Tanner Plummer, yes, Jacob, I do care. Okay. OG Gary, Katie Ledecky is definitely going to get drug tested. That's right. Michael Doddington, first ever comment. Hey Monty, if you don't have UCS at the top of your list to win the conference, then you need to get your head checked.
Like, where are we supposed to go with this?
First of all, I think I just said that they're one of the dark horses, and I believe in this conference, if we look at home field advantages, the bounce house has to be in the conversation. That's especially late in the season when you go there and you have sweat dripping in places that you didn't know you had sweat glands. And I mean, you're sitting in there in the huddle and you're dealing with swamp ash. You're dehydrated. Like, that's a tough place to go and play. That's a tough place to go and play. Brandon Butler, just when I think MAGA boy says the dumbest thing ever, he just keeps typing. Exactly. Exactly right. Let's see. West Virginia Walrus. The Olympics rock. It just sucks that it's hard to watch live since the world is round and time zones. No, the world is flat.
Well, that is, I do think, a great point. I mean, the fact that they're in Europe makes it tough for Americans to watch live.
Yeah, I think that it is, I think it's one of those things that you have to figure out how you watch the Olympics. I watched some of it live. I intentionally avoided gymnastics because I wanted to watch it with my wife. She loves gymnastics. She loves the Olympics. So we like watching it. Mike Smith. I love how diversity has turned into a big bag thing for some. You're a DEI candidate, you whore. She slept her way to the top and she's a DEI candidate. Tell me you are a racist without saying you're a racist.
Seriously.
Exactly right. The Dogs have a relatively untested, inexperienced O-line and D-line. That won't be an issue in the Big Ten, will it? I think that that's what I ask about Oregon. SC, UCLA, certainly, with a coach who doesn't speak English, apparently. I think you're going to have big questions. I can't wait for Oak State losing at BYU.
Yeah, that's going to be a
Hot
rough
take,
day.
Bowman isn't better than Retzloff or Bohannon. Don't you say that about Brandon Weeden 2.0. How dare you?
Yeah, I do think nobody knows who Jake Retzloff is, and they're going to be surprised.
I think Jake Retzloff is going to have a massive season. LOL, someone looked pissed when I referred to them as Jacob. It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird, dude.
Welcome to the Nightmare. Monty always gives my nights love. Dude must not watch the show regularly. Always. I'm a huge Gus Malzahn UCF fan. I love what they're doing in that program. I love it. All right. Let's get you an updated sitch real quick. Should the Bears play Caleb Williams in the preseason?
Yes. Yep.
Caleb Williams will not play tomorrow night. And I don't really understand this. He's a rookie quarterback. And the first thing everybody says is, oh, God, Monty, what if he gets hurt? It's football. It's football. What if he gets hurt in week 1 of the NFL season? The what ifs. Do we live on what ifs? We can't live on what ifs. Right? You have to play Caleb Williams because he needs development. He needs to be confused. He needs to not understand what he's looking at. Because you got in this league, he's already playing at NFL speed. He's not struggling with speed. He's already executing at a high level. Him and Keenan Allen very clearly. I thought the throw he made to Roma Dunze the other day was, I mean, he's playing at a very high level in practice already. And one of the things that Matt Ebersucks as a head football coach, Flus, was talking about the other day, that's an exact pronunciation, by the way, is that Caleb Williams doesn't make the same mistake twice. And I think that's really important. Now I need to see it against other defenses who are going to confuse him. And granted, they're not playing any of their starters. Okay. Caleb Williams needs snaps. He needs reps. And I think what they don't want to do is they don't want to put him out there with the 7th round junior college walk-on wide receiver that they signed. Totally understand it. You just signed DJ Moore to a $110 million contract with 82 guaranteed. Okay. If you can't have him throwing to DJ Moore, I totally understand that. Caleb Williams needs to play. And if that means DJ Moore needs to play, and if that means that Keenan Allen needs to play a series, okay, great, let's do it. Because Caleb Williams needs to learn to trust his eyes. Caleb Williams needs to learn to trust his brain. And sitting him in the preseason is not going to do that. Who are you, Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
You can't do that. You cannot do that. So, quick update on the Utah Jazz, because I think this is something that people are all fired up about. Talked to a guy yesterday who said the Utah Jazz have a quote-unquote ridiculous asking price for Lauri Markkanen. And I think that is, in my opinion, why they don't have a direction. And I think this is a huge problem for the Jazz right now. I think the best Jazz beat writer by far is a gentleman named Tony Jones, who writes for The Athletic. He said yesterday on a local Utah radio station, ESPN 700, that Lauri Markkanen prefers to stay in Utah and will not sign a contract until August 7th to make sure he stays in Utah this year. And after talking to some people, once I heard that from Tony, I reached out to some people who said, for instance, that they asked San Antonio for Johnson and for Vassell and for multiple first-round picks. And then you hear the confirmations of the stories that we've talked about on this show and reported that Podziemski and Kuminga were the starting point, not even the top, not even the finishing. That the Jazz didn't want Jonathan Kuminga. If they were going to make a Markkanen trade with Golden State, that it was going to have to include Podziemski and multiple first-round picks. So the asking price is quote-unquote ridiculous, according to my sources. And I don't understand what the Utah Jazz are doing here, and I want to. Tony Jones also said yesterday on ESPN 700 in Salt Lake that they're working toward Cooper Flag. So let me see if I understand this. You're going to have Markkanen, John Collins, Jordan Clarkson, and Colin Sexton on this team. And are you just not going to play them? Because if you are working towards Cooper Flag, which I think is 100% the right decision, if you are working towards Cooper Flag, are you telling me that to get to Cooper Flag, you're going to play your veterans? You're not going to play your veterans. So let me get this right then. You're not going to play your veterans. You're going to pay Lauri Markkanen by renegotiating and extending his contract, not being able to trade him this coming season because the 6-month moratorium after he signs that deal. You're going to make the exact same mistake you made with Jordan Clarkson, who now has little to no trade value. Your only real active trade avenue here is Colin Sexton. And now you're going to try and sell me a bill of goods that you are moving towards Cooper Flag. That's just not common sense in the NBA. Explain to me if, in fact, because I told you the other day on the show, I think it's 50-50. And if Tony Jones says it, I think it is probably true. I think Tony Jones is dialed in. I think he's one of the best beat writers in the NBA, and I think he certainly is head and shoulders above anybody else in Salt Lake City. If Tony Jones says that they're not going to trade Lauri Markkanen, I'm going to guess they're not going to trade Lauri Markkanen. And if that is in fact true, I am shocked and stunned at the lack of direction and franchise building that is happening in this organization. I simply do not understand what the Utah Jazz are doing.
Yeah, and I think that we Jazz Nation and Jazz fans and all the people that listen to this show that love this team and this organization, I think are baffled by it as well. I hear we hear on the show all the time like Jazz fans saying, yeah, we don't understand what the team is doing, and I don't know. Like I'm happy to speculate on why they're doing this or not doing this. Frankly, I think it's because your owner's distracted. I think that you're not willing to give your front office guys what they need to go out and build a team right now. And I don't know. I'm gonna guess again, speculating my opinion, that Ryan likes some guys on the roster. Ryan would like to keep Lauri. Ryan wanted to keep Jordan Clarkson. Maybe Ryan's not as concerned with going out and getting Cooper Flag. I don't know what else it could be, because what I do know is Danny Ainge is not doing this.
I don't understand. This the Ryan Smith quotient is a big conundrum, because I do believe, based on what I've been told by Jazz sources, that Ryan Smith does not want to look like he stripped this team down to save money. I am told public perception matters to Ryan Smith significantly. Make your plan and stick to it. If the plan is Cooper Flag, you can't have Lauri Markkanen on this team, because you're going to pay him not to play. Because, again, as I told you 3 weeks ago, sources with the Jazz told us this is a youth movement. They are playing the young guys. End of story. No conversation to be had. They are playing the young guys. And I think it is as clear as you can make it that now, and again, maybe I'm putting too much belief in Tony Jones, but Tony Jones is not often a guy that is wrong. And I think the only thing that gives me pause here is that this is the exact scenario that played out with Donovan Mitchell. Because at the time of the Donovan Mitchell trade, you'll remember, we reported that they were holding on to, and I believe the words we used were, they're going to keep Donovan Mitchell and build around him.
Right.
And 2 hours later, what did Adrian Wojnarowski say? The Jazz are going to keep Donovan Mitchell and build around him. And then what did they do? 3 weeks later, they traded him. It's very eerily similar. Hey, I'm not trading Donovan unless we get some crazy offer. Well, they got a crazy offer and they made that deal. And now my question is that where this organization is at with Lauri Markkanen?
It's a really interesting question. I mean, it is kind of a hedging strategy, if you will. Sort of like, hey, we're going to put it out into some back channel media options, guys like Tony, we're going to basically put it out into our circles that we're not moving this guy, in this case, Markkanen, unless we get a huge offer, and we're going to make it feel like we don't want to move him, and then we're going to move him. So that way, when we do move him, people aren't like, oh, well, they're just cutting down the organization.
And just to be clear, again, I want to reiterate exactly what we've reported. They have multiple offers on the table. They do not want Jonathan Kuminga. And Keldon Johnson is not a guy from San Antonio that they believe can be the centerpiece of a deal. They've asked about a Johnson-Vassell swap, where at least intimated that's the starting point. And I think that's the starting point for the biggest reason being that gets them out of John Collins' contract. If you look at the numbers, it is very easy to see the Jazz making a Lauri, John Collins, other guy deal for Vassell and other guys on that roster, draft picks and pick swaps. That's a deal in San Antonio that could absolutely be made if the Jazz were going to make that deal. And I also want to be very clear. I have not been told by, and I have a really good source inside the Jazz, a really good source who's been really accurate. I have never been told by my source at the Jazz that they are absolutely keeping Lauri. I have not been told that. I've been told they're going to play the young guys. I have been told that they are not married to one side of Lauri Markkanen or the other, which means, hey, we'll trade him. Hey, we'll keep him. I think they would be thrilled to keep him, but I think they'd be just as thrilled to trade him. I don't believe that there's some emotional tie to Lauri Markkanen. I think that Golden State doesn't have the horses to make that deal, and they've not been able to trade Andrew Wiggins. But what else did I tell you about Zach LaVine? And everybody hopped on the parade and told me that I don't know what I'm talking about. And anybody see the story that came out yesterday on Zach LaVine and the Chicago Bulls? Zach LaVine is wildly unpopular with his teammates. And that during his time in Chicago, they've done it his way and it hasn't worked. And it's time for him to go. In a couple of weeks, what did I tell you? A couple of weeks ago, he asked to be traded. And now you're seeing anonymous Bulls players saying, we've done it his way and it didn't work. It's time for him to go.
Yeah.
I think that's very interesting. And I think if Golden State were able to make a deal with the Bulls to unload Andrew Wiggins, we're having a different conversation. But I also think, as Tony Jones reported as well, it makes a lot of sense. The Jazz are they have the exact right amount of cap space open to extend Lauri Markkanen. Their options are open. They're on the table. They can do whatever they want. And I think here we are on the last day of July. I think this weekend is make or break time for the Jazz to make that deal, because San Antonio is going to make a deal one way or the other. And it'll be interesting to see who that ends up being. And will they end up moving Keldon Johnson and or Vassell to make that deal happen? We'll find out. Will they make a deal with the Jazz? I think it's more likely the Spurs make a deal than it is Golden State. But I'm going to stick at 50-50 with this Lauri Markkanen deal. I just am far less confident now that Golden State can make that deal happen.
Yeah, I mean, and that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, you got to have the value to get the deal done, and they just don't have it yet. And I think this. I just want the Jazz to take a definitive heading. That's all I want them to do. I don't even care what that heading is. Like I've said so many times, I agree with the Cooper Flag strategy, but what I don't 100%. Agree with, what I don't agree with is sitting here like the point you just made about how they've kept enough cap space open to do the extension with marketing, but they're also having all these conversations about potential trade options.
But
for
what
Markkanen.
really are they doing? They're
just
doing
spinning.
the exact same thing that they did with Don and the Knicks. They're doing the exact same thing they did with Rudy. They're holding the NBA hostage. That's what the Jazz are doing. And I know that it pissed off Jazz fans when I talked to an agent a couple of weeks ago now, whenever it was. People are tired of Danny Ainge's act. And I think at some point and if it's not now, it may be, but at some point it's going to hurt Danny Ainge that he routinely does this, where he will just sit around and, like, a guy was telling me that Danny Ainge just doesn't call you back. You just sit there and you wait. And why is that? Because he's got the best available player on the NBA market right now. And you'll have a conversation like, oh man, can't wait. Yeah. All right. Hey, send it over. Let's really move on this. Send it over. And then you just don't hear from him. And you're just twisting in the wind. Yeah. And it's what happened with John Collins. And that deal finally got done. That deal with the Knicks never got done. But he did get moved to Cleveland, obviously. It's just this modus operandi that Danny Ainge employs, where he's not going to do anything he doesn't want to do, and he's going to do whatever he does want to do on his own time. And I think it frustrates people.
Yeah.
And I will just say again, what basketball IQ would you utilize to keep Lauri Markkanen, John Collins, Colin Sexton, to keep this group of veterans, Jordan Clarkson, on this roster and have a belief that you can still get Cooper Flagg? And if you're Ryan Smith, I don't think Ryan Smith is unintelligent. Are you really going to pay this group of veterans to sit around and not play? And if you're a Jazz fan, if you buy tickets this season, this is your fault.
Yeah.
If you watch games, this is your fault. If you subscribe to Jazz Plus, this is your fault. Because if they do not trade Lauri Markkanen, and I'll also go as far as to say, if they don't trade Markkanen and Sexton, it's a huge mistake. They can live with it. It's a huge mistake. Double the mistake it was to keep Jordan Clarkson on this roster.
Yeah, and I think you also have examples of other teams in your own conference who did what you should be doing and now are competing at the top of the conference. I don't know, like the Oklahoma City Thunder, who had a bunch of these young guys and some guy named Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who nobody had ever heard of, who had this weird-ass name. And now all of a sudden the guy's in the MVP conversation because he got developed. You know, like, hey, you stayed at the top of the draft and you got Chet, you know, and then you went out and made some deals and really put a roster together. And it took you about 4 years to do it, but you did it. Like, that's what you have to do. And I find it fascinating that you're essentially out here in the public trying to put up this perception that, hey, yeah, we're doing everything we can do to make this team better, and we want to win, and we're putting Utah on the map, and the hockey club, and everything's amazing, and let's put out pictures of Laurie and Key in Sweden or wherever the hell they were, you know, practicing together. It all feels great, but it's not going to feel great when you're winning too many games, but not enough games to do anything. That's the worst. We say it on the show all the time.
But it's where this team has been.
For how long?
How long have we been talking about draft assets?
What, 5 years?
A decade. How long have we been talking about shitty draft? How long have we been talking about the Dante Exums? How long have we been talking about not developing young guys? How long have we been talking about that you missed on? How many Devin Bookers have you passed for Trey Lyles, for Dante Exum, for how many guys? It just is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Put your seatbelts on. Because now we have to talk about Elon Musk. Did you guys see this Elon Musk Kamala Harris thing? and Elon Musk sharing deep fakes of Kamala Harris videos. And I'll take you back to why Elon Musk threatened to buy Twitter and then they called his bluff. What did he say? Bots, fakes, misinformation, fake news.
Free speech. People got to be able to say what they want to say.
So, has he gotten rid of bots? No, it's not gotten better. It's gotten much worse. AI and deepfakes have gotten much worse on Twitter. Is free speech a thing? Apparently not. Did you see that Elon Musk deleted the Twitter account, or Twitter X deleted the account of whatever it's called, White Guys for Kamala? They did a $4 million fundraiser in one fell swoop on X, so their account all of a sudden just disappeared. And then Elon starts sharing deep fakes of Kamala Harris videos. What is Elon doing here? That's shocking to me that and maybe I shouldn't be shocked. Are you surprised that Elon did that? I am surprised he did that.
I'm surprised for sure. I mean, I'm always a big proponent of the idea that, guys on Elon's level, billionaires who, have spent their whole life building their business, and then they get involved in maybe an area of the world or culture or community that is not their specialty. I'm always a big proponent of the idea that typically causes trouble. So with Elon, it's kind of this thing where Elon thought he was flexing on people, and then he got trapped essentially in this buying of Twitter. And then ultimately, it's not worked out. And so I'm not surprised that he's gone this way, because ultimately Elon Musk is not stupid. Elon Musk is a really smart guy. And I'm going to guess that Elon's a little frustrated with where this election cycle is heading in terms of support and polling and like what we're seeing take place here in the entire landscape, as we've talked about. And so Elon's going to do what most tech billionaires do.
I would agree.
Elon's going to go ahead and, while we're all sleeping at night, is going to delete accounts, and he's going to share things he shouldn't share. And he's going to say, yeah, I own this company, so I can do whatever the hell I want to do, without ever publicly saying that. And that's the problem. That's the issue I have. And I love this. If you pay attention to what Elon tweets on kind of a regular basis, you're going to see the things he tweets about are Tesla's the safest car in the industry. Oh, another study came out. We're the safest. Our radar's the best. Like, Tesla's amazing. Oh, look at all the Democrats and all this fake stuff and their border stuff. And he gets involved in politics for a few minutes a day. And then what does he do? He goes back to business. He'll tweet some stuff about, money and stock trading. And so that's kind of the flow of Elon's account. And so am I surprised? No, I'm not really surprised from the standpoint of, I think Elon is a Donald Trump guy, and that's fine. I don't think lesser of him for that.
No.
It's his opinion. It's what, it's who he wants to support. That's fine. What I think lesser of him for is trying to get into the middle of the race by impacting the content that users are seeing, and not just deleting accounts. Because I feel like this is a two-step thing. The first step of deleting accounts, okay, we've seen that story before. He's not the only one. A lot of people do that. But then going out of your way to share deepfakes is a really, really bad look. Like, it makes you look silly, it makes you look uninformed, and it makes you look incredibly biased. And that's where I think Elon has misstepped with this. I think it's a terrible look for him.
Yeah, we've got to stop shaming people or shouting people down for their political beliefs. I don't care what side of the line you're on. We've got to stop doing that. And we've got to stop allowing people to just spread lies and misinformation. And I was talking about this earlier, but I did a live stream on TikTok last night talking about Kamala Harris's speech. And I think we had 9,000 people or whatever on TikTok. And it's not enough anymore to come in to shows and Twitter and social and be like, one of the things that we were talking about last night was Kamala Harris wants open borders. Okay, let's be specific about that. Where is she said she is supporting open borders? Right now, I think, as you know, I'm not committed to a candidate here. I do not support the party of Trump, and I am not yet convinced that Kamala Harris is the right candidate. But I also do not believe that it's okay to say she supports taking our gun. Like another thing this guy said last night, Kamala Harris wants to take our guns away. Okay, show me where she said that. She's never said that. She said she wants to ban assault rifles. When did she say she's coming to knock on your door and take your guns from you? She's never said that. When did she say that she wants open borders? Do you know what open borders means? Just anybody who wants to can come in. She's never said that. We have to be honest about it. And we've gotten to a point in politics in this country, like with Elon Musk. I think he's a very good example of this, where you can't trust what Elon tweets anymore. And frankly, I don't think you can trust what anybody tweets anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's just not, it just is not good enough anymore. It is not. And you look at this Kamala Harris speech last night, and I'm telling you, if you are a supporter of the party of Trump, you better get on talking points. I just cannot say this enough. The game plan we rolled out for Donald Trump yesterday on this show, he's got to execute. Stop allowing JD Vance to go and do interviews. Because again, JD Vance is out here talking about how the people that are unhappy on Twitter don't have kids. He said that.
It's wild.
Like, what are you doing? You like Project 2025. Project 2025 was without question the policy-making body for Donald Trump and the party of Trump. And they thought that this was going to be something you could roll out and build your campaign and build your war chest on and drive back to the White House. Until you figured out that when you start telling women what they can and cannot do with their bodies, you start losing votes.
Yeah.
And when you start telling people that they have to be Christians, you start losing votes. And when you start telling people all of these things that Kamala Harris is this radical libertarian and liberal, and she's dangerous and radical, and then you're talking about how there's going to be a total abortion ban. And now they claim that they have stopped policymaking and that they're essentially shutting Project 2025 down. Well, do you guys understand that you should never have started that?
Yeah, I mean, it's bad strategy from the onset.
So you're in damage control now from this Project 2025 thing. JD Vance, I don't know how you fix that, because I don't think you can. I think you have to not allow him to speak.
Well, it's exactly what you said, in my opinion. I think if you're going to, I agree, he shouldn't do a lot of speaking stuff anymore. I would agree. But if they're going to continue to let him to speak, let's say, then he's got to be prepared and ready to talk about the things that they need to be talking about. Like, I'm telling you, the Republicans should stop going after her and start going after what they are going to do. Because that's the big difference. If you really pay attention to both sides and what they're doing, Harris is talking about what she's going to do for the most part. And there are some Trump shots in there. But for the most part, she spends her time talking about what she's going to do from a policy standpoint, how she's going to lead the country. But on the other side, they're spending time talking about her and what she's going to do.
But attacking her personally.
Yeah.
You're attacking her because she's a woman. Like this whole thing about Kamala Harris hating Jewish people and hating Jewish communities and hating Israel. She's married to a Jewish guy who then your response to she's married to a Jewish guy, sir, is, well, he's not a good Jew. That can't be your response. So now what happens if she takes Governor Shapiro as her running mate, which I think she's going to do? She's got a rally in Philadelphia on Tuesday with her VP choice. Why would you start your rally with your first rally with your VP if it wasn't Shapiro? Bro, do you see where this is going? So you're attacking her because she supposedly hates Jewish people. You're attacking her because she doesn't have kids. She does. You're attacking her because you're saying that she supports abortion. Like, do you guys understand that the Trump campaign is out here with its people, which is like Senator Kennedy, like all the people who I would never allow to talk for me.
Yeah.
Accusing Kamala Harris of supporting abortion after birth when there's zero evidence of that. She's never said that. She's never supported that. She's never tried to legislate that.
Well, and that's one of those things that's such a hot button issue that I do think when you say that, people are going to go and look if they don't know.
Yes.
Like if you're someone who's like, oh, well, does Harris really support that? Like, seriously? You're going to go and look.
And here's the truth. Like, if you watched Kamala Harris's speech last night, there's nothing concrete there. There's nothing, wow, that.
Yeah.
But what did Kamala Harris do last night? If you listened to Kamala Harris's speech last night, and if you didn't, listen to what she said about immigration.
So here is my pledge to you. As president, I will bring back the border security bill that Donald Trump killed, and I will sign it into law and show Donald Trump what real leadership looks like.
So let me get this right. Kamala Harris stood on a stage at the launch of her campaign in a battleground state in the city of Atlanta. And she said, here's my policy. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring back the bipartisan, which means Republicans and Democrats got together. She was part of that negotiating committee and came up with a bipartisan border protection bill. I am going to bring that bill back. I am going to sign it into law, and I'm going to show Donald Trump what leadership's about. And that's all she talked about last night.
Yeah.
I am going to make sure, and remember where she was and who she was talking to. Atlanta, Georgia, where you've now passed 6 of the most restrictive pieces of legislation to suppress voting rights. I am going to protect your right to vote. I am going to protect a woman's right to choose what happens with her body. I am going to bring back the bipartisan immigration bill. So she's talking about issues. I am going to drive cost down. She talked about big banks, big oil, all of this, like yesterday. Again, Donald Trump saying that he's the energy president. You're finally talking about an issue. The problem is the facts don't back this up. He got on True Social the other day. OPEC meets today. Donald Trump gets on True Social and threatens OPEC because what he does not want and cannot have, frankly, because I think it'd be very damaging to the Trump campaign. He cannot have OPEC ramp up oil production because when there's more oil production, what happens to prices at the pump? For us, they go down.
Yeah.
So what did he do when he was leaving office? He made a terrible deal for the middle class with OPEC when he basically said, you're cutting production. And he essentially threatened them. They complied. They cut production significantly. So what was the immediate talking point once Joe Biden took office? Oh, gas prices, consumer prices. So what is Joe Biden do in reaction to that? Well, he pulls from the strategic reserve and he immediately starts pumping more oil. He immediately starts producing more oil. Immediately. To the point where now today, did you see the story yesterday out of Texas? The pipelines are full in Texas, especially in northern and western Texas. The pipelines are full. To the point now where you are going to have to start utilizing Houston and southern Texas pipelines because the pipelines in North and West Texas are at 90% capacity because we're pumping 12 million barrels a day right now, ramping up to 13 million barrels a day by the end of the year. So what's happening to gas prices?
Yeah.
Gas prices are coming down. And yet, here we are talking about how Joe Biden's the worst energy president ever. It's just factually not correct. So now you have Kamala Harris, and what are you doing by this misinformation? And again, the party of Trump has got to get on talking points and be factual with them.
Yes.
What you're doing every time you say that she's a cat woman without kids, you just open the door a little more.
Childless cat lady.
Yes, thank you. Childless cat woman. You just open the door a little more.
Yeah.
Every time you say that Joe Biden is the worst president ever, because like Donald Trump last week talking about how Joe Biden was terrible for jobs. That's just factually not correct.
Well, and I think it's a dangerous game to play when, and again, this is what we talked about yesterday. Like the strategy can't be, hey, we're just going to say things. Like you can't just say stuff and roll stuff out that you can't back up. And it's one thing, because this is might be the biggest difference in politics right now. It used to be in politics that we would argue about things we would be arguing about the same information, but a Republican, the same information. So this is the topic. Republican, Dem, we're arguing about the same topic.
And they agreed. They agreed that it happened.
Yes, we agree.
But this is good for us. No, this is good for us.
We're not even getting that now.
No.
We're just getting, hey, Joe Biden sucks. Like, Harris hates Jews, and that's it. And I'm the best ever.
And Donald Trump saying he created more jobs than any president ever.
I mean, at some point you run out of runway.
Factually not true.
Yeah, that's the hard part. You run out of credibility at some point with Americans. It's strong to say that Donald Trump is like disrespecting people, like the American voter. I'm not going to go that far, but I do think at some point you get to a place with voters where they're like, dude, we know that that's not true. We know what you're saying on this particular topic isn't true.
Which is why we have Arizona yesterday completely wiping out their election people because they're unhappy that Arizona would not go along with the delegate replacement and challenge the election in 2020. So we just replace those people. Georgia wouldn't go along with it. So we're just going to replace those people. And we're going to pass 6 of the most restrictive voter repression acts. At some point, you got to get Donald Trump back on the issues.
Yeah.
Talk about Afghanistan. Stop talking about how Donald Trump Jr. the other day said that Donald Trump was the president of peace, that there were no active wars going on during his presidency. There were 41. 41. Trying to put the anvil around the Democrats' neck and say that Israel, Palestine is their fault and Biden's fault and Kamala Harris's fault. Do you really think what's going on in Israel and Palestine is new?
Now, you want to talk about handling the situation?
Okay.
Like mitigating? That's a conversation.
Okay. But do you really think this is new? Do you really think what happened in Iran and in Beirut yesterday and last night is new? No, it's not new. It's not new. And if I'm Donald Trump, here's what I'm doing. I am not allowing J.D. Vance to talk. He is not doing interviews. You're not going on podcasts. You are not going on TV. You're going to travel with me, and we are going to go to rallies together. And you're going to wave. You're going to wave. And I, Donald Trump, am going to stand up, and I am going to do what I always do. I am going to talk to a big group of people because he brings them out. And we are going to talk about how we're going to make America great again, how we are going to drive down this inflation, which is not at an all-time high. Donald Trump the other night, it's at 2.4%. Inflation is not at an all-time high. I would be talking about, I'm going to bring back prosperity to middle America. You've got to stop talking about abortion. You've got to stop talking about 2020 and suppressing voter rights. And you've got to talk about the fact that Kamala Harris is an inexperienced leader who's made bad policy when she was attorney general and a senator, and that she oversaw the pullout of Afghanistan.
Yes.
That's your job. Paint her as inexperienced, paint her as taking missteps. Stop talking about taking reproductive rights away from women. Stop talking about putting women back in the kitchen. You got to stop doing that. Stop talking about the fact that Kamala Harris can't lead our country because she's a woman who doesn't have kids. Because that's just not the case. And the thing that should scare you is, look at the polling numbers, right? Did you guys see her? You probably didn't, most people. Did you see Kamala's speech last night? Listen to this building. Packed convention center. What should stand out to you about that? The Trump campaign saying that the building was empty. It was not empty. Did you notice that there were black faces, white faces, Latino faces? 10,000 people packed to the hilt. Did you notice that Quavo was there performing for her? Did you notice that Megan Thee Stallion was there performing for her?
The young vote is interesting to me in this conversation. Like, it matters, obviously, but it's really interesting to me. Like, how informed is the young voter? Because I feel like there's two different approaches happening here. Harris is basically trying to buddy up with the celebrities that she knows young folks know. Like, people know Megan Thee Stallion. People know Quavo. They know these people. Like,
they know Beyonce.
Right? So she's going that route with it. And then Don and the party of Trump are going with, hey, we're going to do what we always do, but we're going to put a team together to run our TikTok account, like to get out on social and put out content. And we're just going to say the same thing we've always said.
But they're not doing that on TikTok. That's the problem. Where is Kamala Harris with 2.3 million followers on TikTok? Where's Donald Trump on True Social, where nobody is? Nobody. And his campaign sporadically posts in other places. But he won't routinely go use other platforms because he has a massive financial position in True Social, which I think is damaging.
Yeah.
You look at the diversity in the faces, and I'm going to play it again. Just don't focus on Kamala Harris. Look at the people in the background. Look at all the different people. Look at the different skin tones. Look how young. Look at the youth in that background. Look at that. Women, men, white, Latino, black. If you're of the party of Trump, that's terrifying. That's terrifying because that's your rally.
Yeah.
The only problem is at your rallies, people are older and overwhelmingly they are white. And if you look at the group of people that always stand behind Donald Trump, what is it?
Who were the people in the background when he, almost got assassinated?
White men and women. And where is he? He's in Butler, Pennsylvania. Okay, great. Oh, but Monty, he's winning the swing states. Okay. Here's the aggregate. He's up a point and 3/4 on her in aggregate. But here's the real problem. Poll yesterday showed that she's got an 11-point lead in Michigan, a 2-point lead in Nevada, and a 2-point lead in Arizona, and a 2-point lead in Wisconsin.
You can't have Arizona going Democrat, dude.
Trump leads by 4 points in Pennsylvania, Governor Shapiro, and in North Carolina. They're tied at 47% in Georgia. Do you want to make a bet if you repoll Georgia this morning that she takes the lead in that state? That's scary if you're the party of Trump.
Yeah. So the point is,
get on message.
Yeah.
Get on message. You know, like you've got to get on message. It just, yeah. All right. A couple of, let's get some comments in here before we get out. What do we, boy, I can see Ken Williams in the comments section. That never goes well on politics. Go look at her record in California, Monty, as a prosecutor.
We talked all about it,
We have talked about this at length.
Like, dude, Ken. So here's what I'm going to say to you, Ken. Don't come in here today and make a buffoon of yourself because you haven't been here. We've been talking about not that she's the better candidate, just that she's executing the strategies of a campaign better right now. We've talked about her prosecutorial record. We've
the fact
talked
that
about
she
the policies.
wouldn't press for the death penalty
Yeah.
against a convicted cop killer.
How do you not? Like, come on.
But is Donald Trump talking about that?
No.
Is
he's
J.D.
not.
Vance talking about that, Ken? I'm asking you a direct question, sir. Why is the party of Trump, and I have asked this, I think, for 3 straight days, why are we not talking about her direct point-for-point issues, her cases as a prosecutor? Put one of your staff members or 10 of them and pull her worst cases as a prosecutor.
Yeah.
But you're busy. You're more concerned about her having a vagina than you are about her as a prosecutor. You're more concerned about her being a woman than you are about a pullout in Afghanistan. You're more worried about saying that she slept her way to the top of politics than you are about talking about her record as a prosecutor. This is, and I always love that people come to, oh, you're a liberal. What am I wrong about? Give me chapter and verse, and this is what I said on TikTok last night. Chapter and verse, point by point. Tell me what I've said that is not correct about this campaign, because she's not a better candidate to be president. She's running a better campaign. She is not a good candidate. She's flawed.
Big
Problem
time.
is, you're not talking about her flaws. So she can stand up there with Quavo and Megan Thee Stallion, and she can be playing Beyonce songs in Atlanta, Georgia, one of the richest population of Black Americans and young Black Americans who are going to play a huge role in this election. And you want to call her a childless cat lady instead of talking about her record as a prosecutor.
Yeah.
That's what's wrong with the Trump campaign. In a nutshell.
And
That's
it's
what's
clear.
wrong with it.
And by the way, what's so disappointing for me from the Trump campaign is that Harris it would be pretty, like, from a political argument standpoint, it's pretty easy to take apart. It's not like these are like real, like, tough, like, nuances. Like the stuff in California, the Afghanistan thing, like those are real. Like, dude, do you understand, for the Trump party, the Afghanistan situation is like perfect wheelhouse issue for the Trump campaign. That's got America vibes written all over it. Bro, how did we make ourselves look, weak, or like, Republicans have said incompetent, like however you want to describe it. How was it handled so poorly that us leaving that country led to like tons of people dying and a lot of bad stuff happened? Like, that's what you should be talking about, man. Like, this isn't hard to understand, but they don't want to do it.
I am amazed. I am amazed that I actually have to pull this picture and show you these pictures, because I see in the comments section, and it's, I don't even know. Let's where is Trump rallies to look like this, Monty? Ken, do you want a few minutes to retract that statement?
My God.
Do you want, because they don't look like anything like that. So again, I'm just going to give you 10 seconds of this rally. Notice the diversity in skin color. Notice the diversity in age when they go back. Notice the diversity in skin color. Black, white. You have Latino down here in the left corner. You have women. You have men. right? So you think the Trump rallies look like that? Here's a photo of the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Butler, Pennsylvania rally. You think those two are equal? Okay. Here's a rally in Atlanta, Georgia. Best photo I could find. You know what I don't see in the background? Diversity in skin color. So again, Ken, Trump has rallies too, like this, Monty. Where? Where are the young, engaged African Americans? Where are the young, engaged Latinos?
I think that might be your best point. Not just the diversity, but the age of the people. Like, you can see, like, that these are mostly middle-aged folks. Like, you're talking about 35 plus, like,
yes,
40, 50. I know some of the folks at this rally are older than that, but, like, I'm talking about the meat of the voters for these candidates.
And I had to work hard to find photos of diversity at Trump rallies. It's really difficult to do that. I mean, it is. You look at the RNC, you look at the crowd at the RNC, bro, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You do not want to do that, because the crowd at the RNC was not diverse. It was not diverse. And I've gone through this. I sat last night looking at his photos. And again,
that's one of the best ones that we're going to show it to you. That's
again, I'll just show you this photo. And you tell me if this at all resembles the rally that Kamala had last night. Like, it's not hard to find brown skin. It's not hard to find Latinos and Black Americans.
Look at it.
Look at the age difference in the background. Where is the old blue hair? Where's the old person in the background at this rally? And so again, I'll just show you a picture from the RNC. I don't know what rallies you're looking at, because they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it. Ken Williams, Monty, anytime you want to debate me, I'm game. I'm here.
We're debating now, bro.
I'm here. I'm right here, bro. You have a candidate in Donald Trump, and stop talking about Kamala Harris. Forget about her right now. Start talking about Donald Trump. He's not talking about issues. He's going to lose this campaign very simply if he does not get on issues. Because I still think, as I said yesterday on this show and on my TikTok stream, I think it's 60% Donald Trump wins the election. I need to see the VP pick, all that shit. You know how he loses this election? All Kamala Harris has to do is not get on stage and say bad things. And so far, she's been right on message. Number two, Donald Trump will lose if he continues to talk about her being a woman and reproductive rights, and that there's this, like again on Fox News, claiming there's this migrant crime wave. Nothing to back that up. So what did the Democrats do? What did Kamala Harris do? Talk about the fact yesterday, what'd she say? Crime is down. Violent crime is down. There is no such thing as a migrant crime wave. Neil Cavuto on Fox. There's no such thing as a migrant crime wave.
This thing with Fox, I'm telling you, man, like, I think this is what I'll say. If you're the Ken Williams of the world, with all due respect, Ken, the person who's MAGA, Trump's the
Ever
best.
Since Ken has been on the show, he has been 100%, and that's been 4 years.
Yeah, years. So riddle me this, Ken. Why is it that Fox is seemingly parting ways with the party of Trump, like seemingly going back to accountable news coverage on some level, like calling people out in interviews, right? The Cavuto, Senator Kennedy thing the other day. Why is it that they're fighting what these guys are saying? Well, I think it's because they know that they can't be seen to be just letting people say outlandish, untrue,
Dominion
not
voting systems.
fact-based things because of Dominion. So that's what I'm telling you, man. We're in a different time now. Notice, Ken,
That's right.
we're not saying, and I swear to God, if I see you comment this, we have not said, and we've been talking about this more like the last 2 weeks or so. We've never said Harris was the better candidate.
Not once.
That's not what we're saying.
Because I'm not convinced that's the case.
Yeah.
I'm not. I think the biggest issues for Don are that he won't talk about issues. And this debate thing now, she said last night something very poignantly to end her rally. If you're going to talk about me, say it to my face. And he said on Fox the other night, I will not debate her. Everybody knows my stance. They know her stance. What do we have to talk about? All of a sudden, it has nothing to do with her not being the candidate and Barack Hussein Obama not supporting her. But now everybody knows where we stand. We don't need to debate.
Yeah, why do we need to? I mean, everybody. So nobody knew where Biden stood when you debated him?
Come on, man.
It's a soft look, dude. There's no doubt. Like,
I don't know. He's a nightmare as a candidate. I said Kamala Harris isn't a better candidate. What am I trying to say? I don't know that she's the better option for president.
Yeah.
She is a better presidential candidate right now. Period. She's not running scared. I think, and I'll say again, and I know everybody lost their shit on this the other day when I said this. I don't think that Biden waited so long because he just couldn't make a decision. As batshit crazy as he probably is with dementia, I think the strategy of the date that he pulled out was perfectly planned.
How so?
They executed, and the Democrats are not known as a party that executes, my friends.
Yeah, clearly.
They waited until their RNC was over. They let the Republicans have their night in the sun. Let him make his speech. Let J.D. Vance do his thing. All that momentum. And it's unquestioned. They came out of the RNC. The party of Trump came out of the RNC with a ton of momentum and energy. And then things got quiet. And then the moment that Joe Biden released that statement that he pulled out of the election, and he backed Kamala Harris, and then everybody backed Kamala Harris. She raised $200 million in a week, and she has crippled the Trump campaign. And it was perfectly timed. She had plenty of time here to ramp up.
Yeah.
She's got plenty of time to name her VP, and then she's going to go right from that rally in Philadelphia right into the Democratic National Convention. And now it's not that we're 97 days away. She's going to be about 85 days away from the election. And she's going to have tremendous funds. Still doesn't have access to that 91 million because the, FEC is run by a Trump appointee who has to do his investigation. She raised $200 million in a week and has over $400 million in her war chest.
Money's not a problem, dude.
So that $91 million thing, that just went away now. Keep it. Great. You're not going to give it to me? All right, cool. Keep it. She's going to have about 85 days to election day. She's going to have clear momentum in Pennsylvania. And now we need to see how Donald Trump pivots off of the Democratic National Convention. Because if he's smart, and I think Don is pretty smart, he's not going to say two words during the convention. Nor should he. Because notice Joe Biden wasn't speaking, Kamala Harris wasn't. Nobody said anything on the Democratic side during the RNC. And you better hope that when she makes her nominating speech, that she makes a mistake or takes a step wrong.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way this thing gets turned around. Yeah, I think Kid Rock is a very interesting point. Here's the problem with Kid Rock. Who does he appeal to? Old people. Who does Beyonce and Megan Thee Stallion and Quavo, who do they appeal to? Young people. And it's just where these two parties are right now. With Biden stepping down, again, another really good piece of strategery. They immediately went, Donald Trump is the oldest candidate in the history of American politics. Immediately, that was the DNC messaging.
Well, and what have you said for a week? That Harris and the campaign are going to roll out that bipartisan bill on immigration that Don killed. What did she do? In the clip, hey, I'm going to get this passed.
What did she talk about? And then we got to go. What did she talk about? I'm going to get that bill that Donald Trump killed for immigration. I'm going to drive your costs down. We are going to go after banks and oil companies taking profit from you. I am going to make sure that you have access to reproductive rights and women's health care. And I'm going to make sure, and this is one of the most important points, I'm going to make sure that rent and housing costs come down so that you can afford to buy a home. Notice she didn't say millennials, but who is she talking to? A generation of young people in this country who currently can't afford to buy a home and who are getting priced out of living in apartments and houses because their rents are thousands of dollars too much. She went right at those people. Donald Trump has not talked about those people because he doesn't give a shit about those people. He's more concerned. Like, what did she say about taxes last night? Another direct shot at Donald Trump. I am going to make sure that if you make less than $400,000, you are not going to be paying higher taxes. You are going to be paying lower taxes. And if you make over $400,000, you're going to be paying higher taxes. Speaking right to middle-class America.
Yeah.
Because middle-class Americans don't make $400,000.
Oh,
the 1% does. She's campaigning to the 99%. He's campaigning to the 1%. She's on message. If you are in the party of Trump, you should be both pissed off and absolutely concerned about where this campaign is right now. That's what you should be worried about. I'm telling you.
yeah.
It should scare you. Elder Rock. Yes. The problem with Kid Rock is he doesn't put out new music and he is a country star. And if you look at, it's not even a conversation. Kid Rock is not popular. Kid Rock was once.
Yeah.
It's Hulk Hogan. You picked the wrong fucking wrestler, dude. Hulk Hogan's not popular. Dana White, excellent. Unquestioned. Huge figure in sports. Hulk Hogan? No. Yeah, I'm sorry. You said she slept her way to the top. So your candidate has sex issues. You put a porn star to speak at your convention, and then Hulk Hogan, who is now more well known as a guy who sued Gawker because he was videotaped having sex. Like it's mind-numbing to me. And now you're trying to say that Kid Rock's a huge superstar. He's not. Jack White, 500 times Kid Rock, and I'm only comparing musicians in the 313 area code. I would agree with that. Mike Smith, there's been tons of artists that have sold millions. I don't think they are that talented. Plenty of bubblegum, teeny bopper pop stars.
Yeah.
It's not that Kid Rock's not talented. It's not that Kid Rock wasn't a huge star. He's not anymore. You're running a party of has-beens. Is there any question that Beyonce is popular? Is there any question that Quavo and Megan Thee Stallion? Those are targeted artists. Do you understand that Donald Trump has been sued for copyright infringement because he's playing other artists' music at his rallies without their permission? Beyonce got ahead of it and gave Kamala Harris a free license to use Freedom, one of the biggest songs in her catalog. A huge song right now. Like, you guys, we're not even in the same hemisphere.
Yeah.
Right? We're not even in the same hemisphere. Mapes. If Two Holes can get a place, I know I'm okay.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know what you mean by that. Have you ever been to a Kid Rock concert? No, I have not. I don't question that he was once popular. But I mean, a quick Google search. I mean, let's go Kid Rock.
Yeah.
Kid Rock downloads 2023. Let's see
Give him the full year. Yeah.
Let's give him a full year. Let's see. By number, let's see. Number of streams. How about that? His chart history.
His chat.
I mean, he's in all summer long. His song All Summer Long has 2.4 million. That's his largest stream. 2.492 million songs.
Okay.
That song was downloaded. Let's go Megan Thee Stallion.
Okay.
Megan Thee Stallion.
Bro.
Her daily downloads, 9,648,000 or no, excuse me. 9,648,028,452. Her daily streams are 7,219,982 on a catalog of 201 songs. Bro, are we really having this conversation when he's not even at 3 million total for the year?
Yeah.
Megan Thee Stallion's doing in a day what Kid Rock did in a year. Are we really having this conversation, bro? Come on. Whoa. Ferris Khan, let's all agree that Taylor Swift is the most popular musician of all time. She got 38,000 people to register with one Instagram post.
Yeah, well, and notice she hasn't gotten involved yet.
I agree. Brandon Butler, it's not a question of if Kid Rock is popular, it's how relevant he is to people under 35. Yes. I would even agree with that.
Yes. Good talk.
Always a good talk. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for sharing your ideas and your feelings and your thoughts. Everybody, you're always welcome here. Follow me on TikTok and Instagram. I do live streams pretty much daily. Love chatting it up on TikTok. The Monty Show, as always, presented by our good friends at The Advocates, theadvocates.com, the best injury attorneys in the business. Until Monday. Say goodbye, Jake.
Goodbye, Jake.